Hey guys, I'm back with another video. This is going to serve as kind of a midpoint update with the CATRA situation and where we stand on the overall project. I will peel this back in layers because there is more to the story, but I know a lot of people just want to get to the point. So I'll get to the point, and then if you continue to watch, I'll show you guys all of the details. So quick summary. Right this second, I have received the knives back. I emailed CATRA. CATRA says that they stand behind their work. I sent the knives off to Kurt, who is going to Rockwell test them and measure the angles of the bevels, the secondary edge, secondary grind that was put onto the knives. He's going to send those over to Gerald, who is then going to cut test those knives on rope and on cardboard. I am not going to update during that process. I'm going to let them do their thing, and you guys can check out their videos on their channels. I'll link them down below. I'll probably throw them up on the screen, but check them out. The knives will come back to me. I'll then tell you guys a full summary. I'll kind of go through everything all over again and wrap this thing up. But we're at the midway point. We've had the knives tested by CATRA. CATRA has stood behind their results. The knives have been sent to Kurt for Rockwell testing and edge measurements. The degree of the sharpened edge is going to be measured, and then, like I said, they're going to be sent over to Gerald, who's going to test cut them on rope and on cardboard. So we should have a full list of data points all the way from the standardized CATRA test to the rope test that's been pretty popular over years, to the cardboard test that brought on all of the CATRA testing. So we'll be able to compare data points across the board. Don't look for updates from me in real time. Look to those guys' channels. I'll link them down below, and we'll move from there. With that said, let's dig a little bit deeper. I want to first back up a little bit. It seemed like there was a lot of confusion, or a fair amount of confusion is probably a better way to put it, about whining about cosmetics versus variables that have been introduced into this standardized test. If you look at those knives, and I'm not going to roll in video here, but I'll put a link down below of video of these knives edges. If you look at those edges in the report and in the actual video, the edges are not the same angles. There is a burr along the majority of the edge, and the angle of the edge varies all the way along the bevel, which is clear as day to see in the videos. So the entire point of this test was that there was a conversation going on that backyard science was not reliable because there were too many variables that were introduced into the testing. And even if the variables were controlled for, the testing was being conducted by a human being, which by default introduces variables into the test. So it could not be a valid and reliable test. So if we're using that as our standard, we're looking for validity and reliability based on limiting factors through a standardized scientific test that does not use a human, or uses a human as little as possible to have the least amount of variables. If you have edges like that aren't the same angle, they vary all the way along the bevel, there's a burr, etc., 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 there's no difference between where we were at allegedly and where we ended up at. So that's that. We're not talking about cosmetics. We're talking about actual things that actually affect the test. Talk to anybody that sharpens knives. If you sharpen a knife, you have to remove the burr if you want maximum sharpness, which, if you look back at this test, we were using their sharpness test. That was the point of this test. We were testing initial sharpness and durability, which AKA wear resistance, which leads me to another point. There has been some reporting on this test and another test, and in that reporting, statements have been made about, better or preferences, etc., etc., etc. This test was set up beyond nothing more than testing wear resistance, period, point blank. The tests were being done at people's homes on cardboard, and measurements were being given as to how much cardboard, aka how much wear resistance, a knife, a particular individual knife from a batch of knives had. That was the only thing that was being discussed. Not grindability as a manufacturer, not anything to do with manufacturing, period. Simply end user use experience as it pertains to wear resistance. That was the only parameter that we were looking at. So I want to make that very clear, because that got a little bit cloudy out there on the internet. So I want to make that very clear. Now, CATRA's responses. I emailed CATRA after I got the knives back, and I'm not gonna, usually I'll put them up on the screen in a different way, but I'm just gonna roll them through here like this. So on October 13th, you see, hi Stephen, received the knives. Thank you again for all the communication and logistics you have provided. I do have a few questions for you. He told me, keeping in mind, he told me, if you have any questions after you get the knives back, feel free to contact me, and I'll answer your questions. So no big deal. I reached out to him, and this is the body of what I said. I've looked the knives over, and a few things stand out. It appears as though the black-handled Spyderco, I'm referring to them in the terms that he's familiar with from the test. The black-handled Spyderco has been Rockwell tested 6 times, the black-handled Kershaw 5 times, the red-handled Spyderco 5 times, and the Lion Steel pocket knife 10 times. However, all of the knives only have 4 reported values, and those 4 values have been averaged to provide one number. That refers to the table where we got an average Vickers hardness and an average C-scale Rockwell hardness. Why was there at least one more sample site than reported and or averaged on the majority of the knives? This is also true for the Vickers readings. The knives have been tested more than reported or averaged. So, not even in the report was it referenced that many tests were taken and excluded for some reason. So, take that for what you want. Also, the Lion Steel knife was Rockwell tested twice as much as the majority of the knives. Why is that? The Lion Steel knife was even tested on the primary grind. It is my understanding that the Rockwell machine must only be used on perfectly flat surfaces. The other knives have also been tested very close together and over laser engraving. Does this throw off the Rockwell readings? So all process questions, just asking, how should a knife be set up? Can it be read over the laser engraving? Can they be read closely together? Can you read on a non-flat surface? Just process questions. Looking at the edges, I also have several questions. 3 of the 4 knives appear to have wire edges or burrs that are still present. Does this throw off the sharpness? Again, just questioning the process and the preparation of the knives. I also thought the sharpening machine was supposed to prevent this. If you go back and you look at their data, their CATRA Sharp or CATRA Sharp machine, whatever they call it, they say it is supposed to produce a burless edge. The edges are also very inconsistent horizontally and vertically. So again, the angles are not consistent and the edges are very wavy if you're looking at it from a spine to belly or belly to spine perspective. I thought the machines were supposed to put standardized edges on all of the blades. If you remember back earlier, I asked him specifically about the sharpening, and because I was going to sharpen them on my wicked edge, but we decided that we wanted to have the most consistent scientifically relevant edges possible. So that's why we went with the CATRA Sharp, which I believe was like $20 a knife. So we paid $20 a knife. You and I, all of us, to have those edges put on there. Again, I appreciate all of your time and I look forward to your response. Kind regards, Clint. P.S. I have attached pictures of what I'm referring to. However, the files are too large and I will have to send them over multiple emails. So then I sent some pictures. Here, the files were too large, so I gave them the Google drive where I stored those pictures. You guys can go look at them. And then he responded, Clint, with regards to the number of sample sites, you are correct in that we have only reported an average 4 of the test locations, although 5 points were tested. 4 points is sufficient to demonstrate repeatable and accurate test results for both the Vickers and Rockwell testing methods. Hence, we chose to take 5 points and choose the 4 closest results to determine the average. Pause right there. So it wasn't reported that they took more, they tested the knife more than they reported. It also wasn't explained until I asked that they were selective about the readings that they chose. Think about that. This is a standardized, scientific, variable controlled test. With regards to the line steel pocket knife, having discussed this with our metallurgist, the test was initially tried on the blade as it was difficult to position near the hinge. Pause right there. If you look on their website, one of the things they say they specialize in are pocket knives, folding knives. There are many different anvils that are available for jobs like that. So why would a company that does this all day long and even states on their website that they specialize in this not have the appropriate anvil? And how were the other knives read? Because the space difference, and I meant to measure this before I sent the knives off, but the space difference isn't that much. So I'm going to keep on for the sake of time, but just things to think about. Although it is not ideal to take Rockwell readings on the primary grind, they can be done if the blade is mounted flat and horizontal. To do this, we have an angled mounting plate and bubble sprint level to ensure the indenter is perpendicular to the surface. Do you guys see that? A bubble sprint level. Spirit level. I don't know about you guys, but I use a bubble level for stuff at my house. So I don't know how accurate that would be in a scientific test. Notwithstanding, we revisited the test portion and we were able to take the results from an area adjacent to the hinge. Oh, that's where everything else was tested, as with the other knives on the test. There was close consistency with all the readings for Vickers and Rockwell. Where you are seeing an anomaly, I never mentioned an anomaly, so this is where I was a little bit confused as to his response. Where you are seeing an anomaly in the HV Vickers and HRC, that's C-scale Rockwell comparison, and the direct readings of the HRC, to the point to emphasize here is that the hardness is not less than 58.5 and less than 60 for the line steel folding knife, etc. Well, we know that there are knives that are not less than 60, so I don't even know what these numbers mean here, and I don't know why he cited the anomalies I was seeing. I didn't mention any anomalies, I just asked him about the process. With regards to the edges, the knives returned and the evidence of burrs, the 25 millimeter test section is on the straight portion of the blade. So you will see differences along the edge when it has been worn down and the areas before and aft, which are still sharp. CATRA Sharp uses 2 upward rotating spiral discs. So he goes into, talking about the machine itself. Ideally suited for the geometry of the CATRA Sharp, but it is possible to use the machine to generate the test edge. Hence, it does not grind the heel area of the knife. Notwithstanding this is the result for cutting performance, and on all the knives was very good following the sharpness. The test results were consistent for all 4 knives tested and fell within ranges expected of the materials and sharpened edge geometries. The CATRA Sharp is hand operated without any fixtures, so there will be minor variations to the edge. Hopefully this has answered your questions with regards to the test. So several things here. When we spoke, he said that it was going to put a 30-degree edge on these knives. So I was assuming it was going to be a standardized edge. Clearly, I did not ask enough questions. And again, it says hand operated. So we chose this test because we were told that it removes the humans, which introduce variables, like in here where the knife was sharpened. And guys, I don't know. I really don't understand here. Just to be straightforward with you, it really doesn't make much sense to me. How this happened and how the knives look the way they do. So here's my response, because as he indicated, test results, I never questioned the test results. I just asked about the process. So I said, hey, Stephen, I don't know if my last email was clear. I was not questioning the measurements of the test. I was asking questions based on the conversation we had previously, questions related to specifics about standardization, blah, blah, blah. When we spoke and I asked questions, I was under the impression that things would be more controlled. For example, the edge angle. When you told me the test was standardized and the edge would be 30 degrees inclusive, I took you literally. When you said the durability and cutting performance were CATRA's expertise, I took you all literally. Seeing a burr all the way down the edges, see the link for the video. I included a link for the video down below. Does not give me confidence that the sharpness of the edge was maximized. Shimming a knife to test it on the primary grind and not even seeing mention of that in email, because he didn't mention it even in email, or the report does not give me confidence that things were controlled to the highest degree. A bubble level, and keep in mind, he said that doing it that way was not ideal. So it wasn't, the accuracy or the validity and reliability were not maximized using that methodology. Let me put it in a very scientific way. A bubble level is what I use in my house when I want to level a table or other household item on one plane. And yes, I misused the word plane. A blade has two planes, misused it again, that need to be leveled. At the end of the day, I am not arguing the results. I am asking questions about the process. I have had one impression when we spoke about things, when I spoke about things, have not played out to those impressions. So I messed that sentence up as well. Looking back, I accept some responsibility for that. For example, I should have asked more questions about the sharpening process and not assume that things would be so tightly controlled. Assume, meaning just take it for granted. Other things I could have not foreseen. I had no way to know that 5 readings would be taken, 4 reported, and 4 of those hand selected. Again, I assume a standardized research process would be regulated and even irregularities would be reported. I appreciate you taking time to speak with me. Here's the video link. Cheers. Whoops. Let's close that. Let's go back. So this is what I got back, and this is where things get weird. I got back just a picture of Laren's research with a red circle at the top. So I didn't really understand that, you know. So I said, hey, Stephen, I'm not sure of the context of the screen capture that you sent to me. The red circle is not covering anything besides the black background. However, I am familiar with Laren, this piece, and the majority of his work, especially on this subject. Laren actually spoke to me a week or two ago. Also, I have read the bottom of that article. Also, if you read the bottom of that article, I commented. Again, I am not sure of the context of your reply. However, I am familiar with Laren, and he and I have spoken directly. Kind regards, Clint. And we had spoken. I can't remember if he messaged me or I messaged him, but we spoke on Instagram Messenger. So here he says Alchemy 1 is the context. Again, I don't really know exactly what that's supposed to mean. There's no hi, no bye, no, just, you know, to the point. So I just text him, I'm lost, because at this point, we're getting very informal. I don't really know what he's saying. I'm literally at a loss. Then he asked me, are you Alchemy 1? So this was my response to that. And I messed this up as well. Stephen, I am at a loss is what that is supposed to say. I do not understand why I have been receiving such curt emails lately. There is not even a greeting or salutation. I do not understand why you are showing me, is what that's supposed to be, articles of a known PhD metallurgist, and I do not understand why I am being asked about Alchemy 1 in another email with no context. I also do not understand how any of this ties to the test process that I have been asking about. Alchemy 1 is one of my screen names, as well as Alchemy 1 with no underscore. That has been a screen name of mine for over 10 years. Again, how does this relate to the testing process that we are discussing? And that, as you can see, is the end of the communication. So I have not heard back from CATRA. You guys draw from that what you will. I appreciate your time. I will follow up with you guys once I receive the knives back from Kurt and Gerald. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Remember, a lazy man carries a dull knife.